Well, I'll tell you, I've been practicing my lip curls all morning long, getting ready for this deep dive.
Oh, yeah.
I think I need a few more hours to really channel the king, though.
I'm kind of relieved you didn't go with the full Elvis costume, especially if you were going to try to do those hip moves.
Haha, probably for the best. Welcome, everyone, to the deep dive. I'm Harry,
And I'm Kimi.
and today we're going to slip on our blue suede shoes and take a deep dive into the life and legacy of the one and only Elvis Presley.
We've got a great source to help us out with that today, Elvis_Presley.pdf.
It looks like it's based on a Wikipedia article.
Yeah, so it seems
We should have plenty of info.
we should have all the info we need to really get to the bottom of Elvis's life.
All right, so let's start at the beginning. Elvis Aaron Presley was born on January 8th, 1935, in Tupelo, Mississippi.
To a family that often faced financial hardship, which is something that so many iconic figures seem to have in common.
Yeah, like that really motivates you, right?
You know, it's almost like those struggles ignite a fire. That drive to overcome and achieve something extraordinary.
Totally.
And speaking of extraordinary, did you know Elvis actually had a stillborn twin brother?
I did not know that.
His name was Jesse Garon.
Oh, wow.
It's a detail that always gets me.
Yeah.
It sheds light on the family dynamic.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it really highlights the fact that even the biggest stars, they're just individuals with a really complex family history. Right?
Absolutely.
From his early days in Mississippi, Elvis's love for music was super obvious. He was exposed to music at church and even got his first guitar as a gift when he was just 11 years old.
And that guitar really sparked a passion in him, leading him to learn to play by ear, absorbing all these influences from a variety of musical genres.
Wow.
He even sought out, lessons
Yeah.
from his uncles and the pastor at his family's church.
So that's cool.
Really developing his skills, just absorbing this musical tapestry around him. But what I find so interesting is that despite his obvious talent, Elvis was really hesitant to sing in public. He struggled with shyness for quite some time.
Oh, wow. I never would have guessed that.
It's hard to imagine
Yeah.
this super electrifying performer we all know
Right.
being held back by something like shyness, but it just goes to show that even the most confident people,
Yeah,
they often have to overcome their own obstacles. Right?
totally. So let's talk about his teenage years. When he was 13, he and his family moved to Memphis, Tennessee.
Memphis, a city known for its vibrant musical scene.
Oh, yeah.
It was there that things really started to take shape for him.
That makes sense. Can you imagine Memphis in the 50s? Like, that must have been such a melting pot of musical influences.
I know. It's amazing to think about how that environment shaped his sound.
Yeah. While Elvis was attending Humes High School, he surprisingly failed music class.
In 8th grade, actually.
Oh, wow. That's crazy to think about, like, given everything that came later.
It really is. It's like one of those ironic twists of fate. Makes you wonder if his teacher ever, looked back on that and thought, oh, maybe I was wrong.
Yeah, exactly. But get this, just a year later, Elvis performed in his school's talent show.
And it was like an instant transformation.
Yeah.
He just captivated the audience. He became a school celebrity right then and there.
That's awesome. It sounds like that performance was like a catalyst for him, right?
It really does. Like, he suddenly found his confidence and he was able to overcome that shyness.
It really shows you all it takes is that one moment,
Yeah.
one opportunity to step into the spotlight,
Yeah.
to really unlock something special.
Absolutely.
From that moment on, Elvis was unstoppable. He was like a sponge, soaking up all those musical influences in Memphis, country, blues,
Yeah.
gospel.
All blending together to create this unique sound
Yeah.
that would become synonymous with his name.
And then 1954. This is a pivotal year,
Yeah.
a year that would change music history forever.
Forever.
Picture this. A young Elvis walks into Sun Records hoping to record a song.
For his mother as a gift.
Oh.
Such a heartwarming gesture.
So sweet.
But what happened in that studio was so much bigger than that.
Yeah.
He ended up recording a blues song called That's All Right, and this caught the attention of Sam Phillips. He was the producer there.
Yeah.
And get this, he had been looking for a white artist who could sing Black music authentically.
Wow, that's so interesting.
I know.
And Elvis was the guy.
Elvis was the guy. Phillips was just captivated by his talent.
Yeah.
He recognized this unique fusion of country and blues in his music.
Which would later become known as rockabilly, right?
Exactly.
I always think it's so cool when those moments happen, like when real talent meets opportunity.
It's lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
When a visionary producer recognizes the potential of a young artist
Yeah.
And together, they just create something magical.
Totally, totally. And from that point on, Elvis's rise to fame was, well, there's only one word for it, meteoric.
Absolutely. I mean, his performances, his suggestive dance moves,
Mhm.
which of course led to that nickname, Elvis the Pelvis.
Oh, yeah.
They sparked a frenzy, especially among young people.
Of course, it also caused a lot of controversy and criticism.
Yeah.
I mean, even established figures like Frank Sinatra, they didn't get it.
They really didn't. They couldn't understand the cultural shift that Elvis embodied.
Yeah. But it was more than criticism, right? I mean, he was even investigated by the FBI.
After a performance in Wisconsin, yeah.
Wow. That just shows you the impact he was having. He was shaking things up.
Disrupting the status quo.
And his appearances on shows like The Ed Sullivan Show were legendary.
Controversial, but legendary.
Yeah. They played a huge role in popularizing rock and roll.
Exposing a wider audience to this new sound.
And then in 1958, Elvis was drafted into the Army.
It could have been a career killer.
Yeah.
But Elvis was resilient.
Absolutely.
He found a way to make it work. He was stationed in Germany, kept releasing music, making sure his fans wouldn't forget about him.
It just shows his dedication, you know? Yeah, even with military service, he found a way to keep his music alive.
Absolutely. But it was a tough time personally for Elvis, too. His mother passed away while he was overseas.
Oh, wow.
It really affected him deeply.
Yeah, of course. Losing your mom, that's got to be hard.
The bond between a mother and son, it's powerful.
Yeah.
But he persevered,
Good for him.
channeled that grief into his music,
Yeah,
emerged from that period a changed man.
that makes sense. And when he came back from the service, he embarked on a brand new chapter in his career.
He set his sights on Hollywood.
Hollywood. Makes sense. He had already conquered music.
He had ambitions beyond music.
He wanted to be an actor.
He did. He wanted to captivate audiences on the silver screen.
And you know what? He succeeded.
He did.
He starred in all these films, each one with a soundtrack album.
Just further solidifying his multimedia star status.
Some critics would say his films were a bit formulaic, but you can't deny that Elvis had charisma on screen.
Oh, yeah. He was a natural performer.
Whether it was the stage or the screen, he just knew how to connect.
Absolutely.
And in a lot of ways, he paved the way for artists today who blend music and film.
Totally. But there's more to Elvis than just the glitz and glam.
Right.
More than the rock and roll.
There was another side to him.
A side that sometimes gets overlooked.
What do you mean?
Well, Elvis loved gospel music.
Oh, wow.
It resonated with him spiritually.
I wouldn't have expected that.
Well, his gospel recordings actually earned him 3 Grammys.
Seriously.
Yeah.
That's amazing. The king of rock and roll, also a Grammy-winning gospel artist.
It speaks to his versatility, you know?
Yeah.
He could really move audiences across all sorts of musical landscapes.
And then, of course, there's the $1 Million Quartet jam session in 1956.
Oh, yeah.
Elvis, Carl Perkins, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Johnny Cash
All together,
at Sun Records.
legendary.
Can you imagine being there?
The energy in that room.
Just incredible.
It's one of those moments that captures the spirit of a generation.
Totally. As his career went on, there were ups and downs, triumphs and challenges.
Of course, that's life.
Yeah. But through it all, Elvis's star never really dimmed.
No.
But by the late 60s, his career needed a boost.
Needed something to remind the world
Yeah.
of the raw talent that had made him an icon.
And that boost came in the form of the 68 Comeback Special.
A TV event that brought him right back to the top.
It was a big deal, right?
Huge.
And it was where he wore that iconic black leather outfit,
He did.
just oozing that rock and roll energy.
It was a defining moment.
Led to another incredible chapter in his career, his Las Vegas residency.
The shows at the International Hotel became synonymous with Elvis.
The jumpsuits, the costumes, the karate moves.
They all came from those Vegas shows.
And despite the fame, the fortune, he never forgot about giving back.
In 1970, he met with President Nixon.
Really? What for?
He wanted to talk about drug culture.
Wow. I never knew that.
He asked for a badge from the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs.
It's a side of Elvis we don't often hear about.
It reveals a depth,
Yeah.
complexity.
It was more than just a performer.
He was a concerned citizen.
And you know what's interesting? He also expressed concerns about the Beatles,
He did.
seeing them as, well, a symbol of anti-American sentiment.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, it challenges how we think of him.
It does.
But sadly, his later years were marked by some personal struggles
his health declined.
and the demands of his touring schedule.
It was relentless.
And then there was that tell-all book by his bodyguards.
Exposed his drug use.
Not good.
A real blow to his image.
It's a reminder that even those at the top.
They're still human.
Yeah.
Vulnerable.
And then in 1977, Elvis died.
At the young age of 42.
The circumstances surrounding his death.
The denial of drug involvement.
Yeah.
The later revelations about polypharmacy.
It's a sad story.
A cautionary tale.
But even in death, Elvis's legacy continued to grow.
Graceland.
Became a major tourist attraction.
Music halls of fame.
Posthumous hits.
Remixes.
Advertising.
His voice continued to be heard.
His influence is undeniable. Music, fashion, pop culture.
An icon.
A legend.
His impact is still felt today.
It's amazing to think what he accomplished.
It's such a short time.
What could he have done if he had lived longer?
It makes you wonder.
But what we do know is that Elvis Presley left a mark.
A legacy that inspires.
And entertains millions.
Around the world.
Well, this has been an incredible journey.
We've only just scratched the surface.
Yeah.
Of Elvis's life.
But it's amazing how much we learned from just that Wikipedia entry.
It shows that there are always new things to discover.
Even about the most familiar subjects.
So let's take a moment, gather our thoughts, and then we'll dive into the final part.
Okay, sounds good.
And it just shows you his dedication. Even with military service, he found a way to keep his music alive.
Yeah, but it was also a sad time for him personally, right? His mother passed away while he was overseas.
It did. It really affected him.
I can't imagine.
The bond between a mother and her son, it's so powerful. Totally. He persevered, though.
He did.
Channeled his grief into his music.
And
And when he came back from service, he really embarked on this whole new chapter.
he did.
Set his sights on Hollywood.
Hollywood. That makes sense. I mean, he had already kind of conquered music at that point.
He did, but he had ambitions beyond music, you know?
Sure.
He wanted to be an actor.
Wow.
Captivate audiences on the silver screen.
And he did.
He did. He starred in tons of films.
I love his movies.
Oh, they're so fun.
Yeah,
Each one accompanied by a soundtrack album, of course.
of course.
Further solidifying his star power.
Now, some critics might say that his films were a little formulaic,
Yeah, maybe a little.
but you can't deny Elvis's charisma on screen.
Oh,
He
absolutely.
was a natural, whether it was the stage or the screen.
A true performer.
Yeah, and in a lot of ways, I think he paved the way for a lot of artists today
Totally.
who want to blend music and film.
Absolutely. But there's more to Elvis than just, the glitz and glamour of Hollywood.
Right.
More than just the rock and roll.
There was another side to him, wasn't there?
There was a side that I think often gets overlooked.
Like what?
Well, he really, really loved gospel music.
Really?
It resonated with him on a spiritual level, I think.
Wow, that's not what I would have expected.
And his gospel recordings earned him 3 Grammy Awards.
Seriously.
It's true.
The king of rock and roll, a Grammy-winning gospel artist.
It really shows his versatility,
It
his
does.
ability to move audiences, with all these different genres.
Totally. And then, of course, you can't forget about the legendary $1 Million Quartet jam session.
In 1956.
Elvis, Carl Perkins, Jerry Lee Lewis, Johnny Cash, all together.
They're all together.
And Sun Records.
It's the stuff of legends.
I know. Can you imagine just being a fly on the wall in that room?
The energy in that studio must have been electric.
Chills, just thinking about it.
It really speaks to the power of music to bring people together,
It does, for sure.
beyond their differences, to create something truly magical.
Absolutely. As Elvis's career progressed, there were ups and downs,
Of course, like anyone.
triumphs and challenges.
Yeah.
But his star power never faded.
Never.
But by the late 1960s, his career needed a little bit of a spark,
Yeah, I think so.
something to remind the world why he was such an icon.
Exactly. And that spurt, it came in the form of the 68 Comeback Special.
The 68 Comeback Special.
It was a television event that just breathed new life into his career. And it reminded everybody why they loved him in the first place.
It was a really big deal.
It was huge, huge.
And he wore, of course, that iconic black leather outfit,
Oh, yeah.
oozing that rock and roll energy.
It was like he was back to his roots,
Totally.
That raw energy.
I could see it now.
Like he never left.
And it was a defining moment in his career, leading to his Las Vegas residency,
Oh, yeah.
which became so iconic.
There's shows at the International Hotel.
It's Elvis,
It is almost.
The jumpsuits, the elaborate costumes, the karate moves.
It all came from those Vegas shows.
And despite all that fame, all that fortune, He never lost sight of giving back.
He didn't. In 1970, he actually met with President Nixon.
What?
Yeah.
Talk about what?
Drug culture?
I had no idea.
Elvis requested a badge from the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs.
Wow. It's a side of him you don't often hear about.
You don't, and it really shows a depth to him.
I feel complex.
He was more than just an entertainer.
Totally.
He was a concerned citizen, you know?
Yeah. And he was also, it's interesting, he was concerned about the Beatles.
He was.
He saw them as, well, almost a symbol of anti-American sentiment.
I know, it's fascinating.
It really challenges the way we usually think of him.
It does. It does. Sadly, though, his later years were marked by some struggles.
Yeah.
His health declined.
Yeah, the demands of his touring schedule.
So relentless.
And then there was that tell-all book.
Published by his bodyguards.
Yeah, that exposed his drug use.
It was a real blow to his image.
Yeah, a reminder that even those at the very top, they're still human.
They are. They're vulnerable.
And then in 1977, Elvis died.
At just 42 years old.
So young.
Way too young. All the circumstances around his death.
The initial denial?
The revelations about polypharmacy.
It's a sad story.
A cautionary tale.
But even in death, his legacy didn't stop.
Graceland became a major tourist attraction.
Of course.
He was inducted into multiple music halls of fame.
Posthumous hits.
Remixes, his music used in advertising.
His influence is undeniable. Music, fashion, popular culture.
He's an icon, a legend.
And his impact is still felt to this day.
It's amazing to think what he accomplished in such a short amount of time.
Makes you wonder, what if he had lived longer?
What could he have done?
Yeah, it's a question we'll never know the answer to.
But what we do know is that Elvis Presley left a mark on the world.
A legacy that inspires and entertains millions.
All over the globe.
Well, this has been quite a journey.
We've only just scratched the surface, though.
Yeah, but it's incredible how much we've learned from just that Wikipedia entry.
It shows that there are always new things to discover.
Even about the most familiar subjects.
Exactly.
So let's take a moment, gather our thoughts,
Yeah.
and then we'll dive into the final part of our Elvis deep dive. As we jump back into Elvis, I'm really struck by how he stayed true to his roots, even when he reached, that crazy level of superstardom.
I know what you mean. Despite all that pressure to conform, he never shied away from recognizing the influence of Black artists.
Right.
Which says a lot about his integrity, I think.
Yeah.
His appreciation for the people who really shaped his sound.
Yeah. And yet, even with that acknowledgement, he still faced those accusations of appropriation, right?
He did.
A complex issue for sure.
It is.
It highlights how, race and music were evolving.
Especially in America.
And it's a conversation that we're still having today.
We are.
Music, it reflects society, right?
It really does. It's a mirror to all the complexities and struggles.
But let's step back for a second and just talk about Elvis's artistry for a minute.
Okay.
Beyond those cultural conversations.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to get caught up in the image,
It is, but he was a talented musician.
He was. He played multiple instruments.
And he had an incredible ear for arranging. He couldn't even read music.
I know.
That's crazy.
A natural talent.
Yeah.
And his vocal range spanning all those genres.
I mean, we call him the king of rock and roll, but
he wasn't afraid to branch out.
Yeah.
Gospel, country, blues.
Even pop.
He blended it all.
Created something new.
His own.
Yeah. It shows how curious he was, right?
It does.
Artistically.
Always pushing those boundaries.
And honestly, you can't talk about Elvis without talking about his impact on pop culture.
You can't.
It goes way beyond music.
The image, the catchphrases.
The dance moves.
Everybody knows Elvis.
He's become more than just a musician.
He's a symbol, an archetype. His influence is everywhere.
I wonder what he would think if he could see the world today.
The way his music has lasted.
All the artists he's inspired.
It's fun to imagine.
It is.
But at the end of the day, it all comes back to the music.
It does.
Great music.
It's timeless.
It connects with us on such a deep level.
Elvis's music did that.
It still resonates with so many people.
It's the power of authentic expression.
Yeah.
It's a gift.
Well, this has been quite a deep dive.
It has.
Into the life and legacy of Elvis Presley.
From Tupelo
to global superstardom.
The highs and lows.
The lasting impact.
It's a true icon.
And to think, we got all this from just one Wikipedia entry.
It's amazing what you can find if you dig deep enough.
As we wrap things up, I have one last question for you.
Okay.
And for our listeners. What if Colonel Tom Parker had never entered the picture?
Oh, that's a good one.
How do you think Elvis's career?
His life even would have been different.
Colonel Tom Parker, Such a controversial figure.
Yeah. Was he the key to Elvis's success? Or was he holding him back?
It's a question that sparks so many debates.
I know, it really adds another layer
Yeah.
to the whole story.
And it goes to show that even after all this, there's still more to learn.
There always is.
More questions.
More to ponder.
That's the beauty of a deep dive, right?
That's it.
It's not about finding all the answers.
It's about sparking that curiosity.
In opening ourselves up to new ways of thinking.
Exactly.
Well, that brings us to the end of our Elvis deep dive.
It does.
Thanks for joining us on this journey.
Thanks for listening.
Exploring the king of rock and roll.
A man whose music continues to captivate the world.
We'll see you next time
On the Deep Dive.